Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to BipolarLines, the podcast where two spouses talk about loving someone with bipolar disorder. I'm Brooke.
And I'm Laura, and we are here today with a special guest, Matt. Matt, welcome.
Oh, thank you, ladies. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And he is unable to join us by video today, which is no big deal. We've got him here on audio. And I think we're going to start off all interviews with a fun little rapid fire question session. Laura, do you want to take the first one?
No pressure, Matt.
None. No pressure, Matt.
I just woke up a little bit ago.
You got this. You got this. Just first thing that comes to your head. What's a guilty pleasure you can't resist?
Oh,
Chips. Potato chips.
Chips. I love it. See, you're off to a rolling start. You didn't even have to think about it.
That's always
pretty awesome.
Yeah. Good for, not good, but that's my go-to snack, but I really stopped a lot recently. So yeah, that's it. Over my whole entire life, I guess that's what it would be.
Chips. I love it. Love it, love it. Okay. If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be?
Oh, wow. Wow. I would say, you ladies are too young, but I would say Rocky Blyer, running back for the Steelers, who had to go to the Vietnam, got drafted by the Steelers. Then he had to go off to the Vietnam War, got half his foot shot off, and then he came back. He had PTSD and everything, but he still went and won a bunch of Super Bowls after he came back from Vietnam. Wow. Just a great life, great book. Wow. He's awesome. He'd be the one for me.
That's really cool.
That's so really interesting. Cool. That is really cool. Okay, and then our last question would be, if you could instantly master any skill, what would it be?
Oh, definitely DIY stuff. Yeah, I have no time to do it or patience, but I know it's kind of good for the soul and the head and the pocketbook, but I just can't. I don't have it in me, and I don't have the time to learn. I don't want to learn. So if someone's gonna, drywall my basement, I'm paying for it, So that would be a carpentry.
Okay.
There you go.
Carpentry. I like it.
Yep.
Well, you did fabulous, Matt. You aced those questions. Oh. It's just something to get us started and get the mood settled, and you're very welcome. You're very welcome.
Great. Well, what about you gals? I might have missed it, but you could just do the guilty pleasure one. What is that for you?
Oh, guilty pleasure scrolling TikTok.
Oh.
Yeah. It's bad. Like I will just check out of the world and just scroll on my phone.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll tell you mine, and it's gonna be crazy for the people who know me, because I'm not a gamer. But playing Fortnite is my guilty pleasure. It's so true. I'm absolutely serious.
Never want to get a snap in a million years.
I wouldn't have guessed that either, Brooke.
Nope. It is something that my kids got me playing when we had the ice storm back in January of this year in 24, and they would not stop. I mean, we were shut in the house, couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't even walk down the hill. I mean, we were done, and they would not leave me alone about playing. And I was finally like, "Oh my gosh, just give me the controller, and I will play this stupid game with you." And well, I haven't stopped playing since.
And real quick, we'll just go over the historian that you would like to have dinner with.
Oh, Brooke, I wasn't expecting him to turn it on us.
Right? Like we were just supposed to ask you the hard question.
When you get interviewed, you know what you have to do is kind of throw it back to their face.
You do. You're not wrong. You are not wrong.
So the best way to get to know you ladies as well.
Yeah,
Rosa Parks
totally.
for me. Rosa Parks for me.
That's a good one.
Go.
For very, very, very many reasons. But yes, her. For sure.
Oh my gosh. I have like too many. I feel like I can't pick one. It's like, and how far back do you go? And what if I miss someone that was more important than the person I'm thinking of? Too much pressure.
Yeah, you can always eliminate the side of any family or family member that you've had or something. You just someone think.
Right, exactly. It's like, oh God, and if you pick someone political right, certain family members go out the window. Okay, let's do this one. I'll just say Amelia Earhart.
Ooh,
Okay.
good one.
That's
Good
a
one.
politically neutral person.
And
like
one
it.
more for you, ladies. What's your favorite band of all time from when you were little till now that you'll always hop in or listen on your iPad or iPod or whatever it is?
Ooh,
Spotify.
that's a good one. Favorite band. So mine have changed after meeting Cody, my husband. Like if I had not ever met Cody, mine would have definitely been the Backstreet Boys. I can still throw them on and listen to every song and sing and belt out the lyrics. But because I have met Cody, it's Tom Petty now.
Nice.
Wow, I would not have expected that.
Yeah, Backstreet Boys and Tom Petty are quite the genre difference.
I was not ready for that one, but okay. All right. No judgment here. I play Fortnite with the best of them, so it's fine. Tom Petty, Backstreet Boys. Oh, I feel like I need to phone a friend here to ask my husband what my favorite music is. I don't even know, but I will go with. Can I go with that one? Is that even fair? My kids will be like, "You're lying" if I say that one. Hold on. I could always go with my dad, who is a musician, because that is true. He is a musician,
Aww.
and I'll always listen to his music.
There you go.
Yeah,
That's cute.
It'll work. All right,
nobody can come for me for that answer.
No,
So
they cannot.
done.
Good.
That's great. Thank you for throwing those back at us, Matt.
You're
It
welcome.
actually was good. It was good. Don't do it again, but it was good. No, I'm just kidding.
Well.
I'm just kidding. All right, everybody, we're going to dive into the interview. And I think maybe the best way to sum up this episode is going to be like under the guise of lovingly leaving. So Laura and I have talked a lot about how we stayed with our person, how we get through the episodes currently, and how, we are where we are today. With Matt, he is on a different path. And again, there's no judgment here at all. We just want to understand like what he's learned along the way and how he lovingly left his marriage. And he was married to someone with a bipolar disorder diagnosis. Matt, is that an accurate statement?
That is correct. Very accurate.
Awesome. So this is just going to be a different side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Go ahead.
A different side of how listening to you ladies and how you manage your marriages to where I had to learn along the way. And I just want to be out there to kind of help people to kind of attack it early instead of, the phrase walking on eggshells and just, you really just got to attack it early and understand what's going on. So you do the right thing for your partner and yourself and your family, basically.
That's a very good point. Very good point. So, Matt, how long were you married?
It was like 23 years, but officially probably 25 because you were going through divorce and everything and struggles. So it ended up being 25 years, but 23, it was kind of when, for me, it was falling apart and not by anyone's fault, really. That's just how it went.
Right.
Because the struggles just coming more and more, especially after 2020, it really ramped up and it was like a nonstop anxious mania for 4 straight years. So, and even like the 2 years after we separated and, she went on her own, it was still that way. And those were probably the worst 2 years. And it's just because in my opinion, everything's just my opinion. And like I always say when I start everything, I'm not perfect by any means, but in my opinion, just didn't have the proper direction to kind of help continue on with the marriage, I guess is the best way to say it. And when you're in, and I know my partner didn't like the word manic. That was, not a great word to toss around the household or just saying, but when they get to that state, as we all know very, very well, that they're very stubborn and what they say goes, and really no change in their mind, like you ladies mentioned on your podcasts in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah, I recently had learned this term probably a year and a half ago now called anosognosia. And I did a TikTok on it, but essentially, anosognosia is where the person who has usually who is experiencing a severe mental health crisis, as in schizophrenia or bipolar mania, as this term means that they don't have insight, they don't realize that they are sick, and so it just adds fuel to the fire, because if they don't know they're sick, they're of course going to get mad at you for saying they're manic or something's wrong, because they
Cool.
do not think they are. So
Yep.
yeah.
Manic becomes a dirty word in those moments.
Right.
I just say either unwell or a little bit off is what I always just say. That's just my term, you know.
Sure. You soften the blow a little bit by using different language.
Yeah.
And Laura, that was a boundary that Cody had put for you, right? Like, if you say
Yes.
you were turning manic, like, it just made everything worse, right?
Yeah, he specifically told me, like, don't use that word with me because it makes me worse, and it makes him spiral, because then he keeps thinking about it, and then it's making him worse, and the racing thoughts and stuff. So
Yeah.
he has asked me not to use that terminology.
Yeah.
There you
Makes
go.
sense.
At least in the moment.
Yeah.
Hindsight, no problem. Hey, you had a manic episode last year. No problem, hindsight. But in the moment, no.
Right.
No.
Right. That makes
No.
sense. And
Yeah.
Matt, just for our listeners' understanding, there are going to be words that you're going to phrase in a specific ways. You have children that you are lovingly coming on this podcast, and we very much appreciate it. We want to protect their peace. We want to protect their memories and their history. So there may be conversations and roads that we're not going to go down, and that's intentional to protect your family. So just want to throw that out there. And we are 100% okay with that. And like we mentioned, I don't think it was last week when we spoke, if there are questions that you do not want to answer, all you have to do is say no. And that's fine. We'll cut it out. Just because I forgot to remind you in the beginning that you could do that. So go me. It's too early, okay? It's 10 o'clock here.
Oh, don't even start, people.
It's 8 o'clock for you,
Yeah,
Laura.
it is 8 o'clock for
Sorry.
Laura. Laura's on the struggle bus.
She needs more coffee.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's see. So as far as lovingly leaving your person, and you'd mentioned things got worse in 2020. How many episodes had your spouse had when you were married before you all went through the process of separating?
The first one came 5 years into our marriage. I think it was 2002-ish, 3-ish. And then I had no idea what was going on. It was like we talked about, work and stress and everything. And I just remember a project that had to be done, and it was late and not sleeping, coming home later. And then you can kind of tell. So I had no idea. And then the episode just exploded one day. And, I just eventually had to, after a week's time, she had asked her sister to come get her. And, I'm like, what did I do? I'm just trying to figure out everything, and took her away kind of for a week. And then eventually it gotten worse and worse. She needs to get some help at a hospital. I'm like, okay. Cause you don't know. I don't know.
Sure.
I grew up in a small town. I'd never seen anything like that before in my life. I mean, it's, so it was all new to me. And then after 2 or 3 days in the facility, then you have your exit interview, and then you learn some things that you had no idea about. And then 12 years, 13 years go by. Awesome.
So
Obviously
no episodes in 12, 13 years.
Well, I mean, I'm sure looking back in hindsight, looking back at it now, because that over those 12, 13 years, you forget about it, right? And I had no idea what bipolar was when I was told that. I'm like, oh, okay, but after 12, 13 years, everything's going dandy, and just so happened, it came again, like in the 40s, it starts coming and creeping and losing jobs and more things on their mind. And obviously maybe a tiny bit of struggles with myself and her, but there really wasn't. I mean, we got along really, really well for a long, long time. You have your regular husband, wife, tips or anything like that. But,
Sure.
there was a couple blowouts, just a couple. But in 2016, loss of a job. And I just remember this specifically because I think she was on medication for the stressful job. I ended up staying home for a few years with the children because it was a travel job every other week gone. And it was a, big job, big promotion, just had to be gone a lot. And I stayed home, and then it just lost a job. And then just after a while, one day she goes, well, I don't need to take my medicine anymore. And I didn't know what the medicine was for. I thought it was for just sleep. It was mostly, I'm using it for the job. And I'm like, oh, okay. And in my head, I'm like, oh, yeah, hell yeah, that's probably right. But no, after another month or two, and as we all know now, and that's when I really started digging deep into the mind and bipolar and mental illness, is your brain starts to change and there's no helping it, and it gets worse and worse, and you don't sleep. And so 2016, like 2 months after that, another hospitalization. And then after 2020, it was probably like hospitalization 4 to 5 in emergency rooms combo.
Goodness, yeah.
But it's been since September of 22, the last time there was a hospitalization, and that one ended up being for 2 weeks. So
Yeah. Oh man. It's so similar kind of, I don't know how much you know about me, Matt, but Cody had his first bipolar episode in 2006. That was 9 months after I married him. And like you, I had never heard of anything like this before. And I live in a big town. I'm from Denver proper. You would have thought I would have seen something like this. I mean, but no, I mean, I didn't know anybody. I mean, maybe in hindsight now, I realize a neighbor probably was bipolar, like my neighborhood friend's mom, like, maybe in hindsight, but no, like I had no framework for this at all. And it was crazy. But then after that, he had 10 years of remission. I guess you could call it remission, but yeah, like no episodes either. And then 2016 was exactly when his started up again, and he has had 8 between 2016 and 2023. It's crazy.
Oh, how many hospitals since then? How many in those 7 years, 8 years?
8. Yeah, he had it went in a cycle of like 10 months, a year and 7 months, 10 months, a year and 7 months, because my mom documented them.
Yeah, I remember you saying that, on the podcast. Yeah. It all just starts to, it all starts to snowball. And it's just, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And his too, the 2016 was he lost his psychiatrist. He was using a psychiatrist through the university school he was going to, and then they're not supposed to keep you after you graduate, but he begged this guy, and this guy did. But then this guy retired, and then Cody was like, I don't think I really need meds anyways. Like, I've been fine for 10 years. And I specifically remember what I was doing the moment he told me that, because I just had this feeling of dread. Like, so little different there from you, but I was drinking a Coors Light, and I remember just starting to peel off the label, being like, oh my
Wow.
God, oh
This is
no.
not going to go well.
Yeah.
But your whole body just kind of freezes, and you're like, oh
Yes.
no.
That feeling in my, I got that feeling in my stomach right now just thinking about it.
Yeah, when you know, right? Yeah, that feeling of dread. Yes.
That was 2020 for me. It's like, oh, I'm on 100 of this. I think I could cut back. And it would always happen to be like, I couldn't get my ass out of bed. I'm going to just cut back 25 or 50. And then you're like, okay, but then when you see it happen again, then after that, when it keeps happening, then you just get that feeling of, I know it's coming in a month.
Yeah. I would imagine, I don't know much about you, but since you were the one staying at home and she was the one with the promotion and the job, like this is a very dangerous position for a spouse to be in financially, unfortunately. Yeah, because I'm very clear with people that we have separate finances and always have. And then I've essentially orchestrated my life that in the event something happens and he does, not only can a manic episode ruin you financially because they're spending like crazy, but they might lose their job. They likely will lose their job. So you have that double whammy of losing the job, clearing out all the bank accounts because they're manic spending, and you're sitting there as collateral damage.
Yep.
You're sitting duck.
I would have known that before, because I probably would have done that. But at the same time, I totally supported I found something, about a month later, and eventually she found something part-time, which was awesome. That was like the best time. And that helped out. But yes, the manic spending is just out of control. Like I mean, the stuff we can probably all share together, the stuff that goes up in an Amazon package, you're like, what the hell?
Yeah, yeah. See, I will tell you that the difference there is my husband does not shop online. He refuses. He has old school paranoia thinking like if I put my debit card out there, like somebody's going to get it.
Oh, Cody
So
just
I
uses
don't have
mine.
to worry about that. Oh, he doesn't even know
I,
how to do that.
I
Like,
get made fun of. I get made fun of by my ex and my children that I still write checks and I use cash for a lot of things.
well,
They
if it works, it works.
it
Believe me,
works.
I'm not arguing that he doesn't know how to do online stuff because that just means less spending.
Yeah.
No argument
Yep.
here.
Yeah.
You know what Cody started doing at the end, like these last couple episodes, is he knows that he gets in trouble for spending. So he has enough self-awareness as you go through each episode. He learns as well. So he has enough self-awareness to realize he's probably spending and he shouldn't. So then he just spends it on stuff for me and the kids. So Legos come for the kids, like little
That's
knickknacks for me. I'm
hilarious.
like, so like, what are you doing this for?
So I won't make it about me. I will spend my money on you.
Right. I mean,
So
it
then,
lessens the blow slightly, but at
well,
the
yeah,
same time, you're still like,
that's hilarious.
yeah.
Sneaky manipulative bipolar disorder.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember him hospitalized this last time, and packages were still coming for me and the kids. And it was just
Oh.
stuff he had ordered before he went in the hospital.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's
Yeah.
hilarious. Wow. But
So
okay, go ahead, Matt.
refresh my memory, Laura. Did Cody like drink or drugs or anything like that? Was
Oh,
that
yeah.
anything? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
See,
you know what's interesting is later stage though, when he's like manic psychotic, he doesn't. Like, but it's just too far gone at that point. Yeah.
yeah, because I mean, in my case, and it's a very rare percentage that I've read and just dealing with people like yourself and people that I know that I'm in group chats with and stuff like that. It's very rare because my ex doesn't even like she'll have a glass of wine every now and again, a couple ciders, but never touch drugs in her life, and that is not a vice whatsoever, and that's very surprising that that's the case. Nothing. I'm just saying, in my case, drugs or alcohol were nowhere near. I never had to worry about that at all, and I listen to you guys. I'm like
Interesting.
I cannot imagine like Brooke and you, but I know Brooke's story a little more. If that was the case, I mean, it was so much to deal with as it was. I can't imagine putting another layer like that on top of it.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that wasn't your experience because, yeah, like you
Yeah.
said, it is another layer. And it becomes, I mean, like, from my story, Matt, is that it became this thing that I became so hyper fixated on because I was like, everything is terrible when he drinks. So it
Yeah.
became the problem instead of that being, how he was masking and how he was trying to cope. He was trying to just drown out the pain. So good news there is, yay, I'm glad that was not how it was for you. I do want to know, is there a difference from what you observed with her manic episode symptoms versus what you know to be true about like our situation with Jeremy's? How they presented. Was it significantly different or was it very similar?
Are you talking about? Well, because he kind of broke up because I'm in the middle of the woods for some reason here. But you talking about like what I learned from the professionals about it, or
No, like how she presented with mania. Was it the same as how we've described our people presenting?
yes, yes. Everything leading up to it was very similar, and I could tell when it was coming. I mean, everything was the same, and everything how you present it, and yes, it starts up, and you can tell. Like I can always tell a week in advance something's going to happen here soon. And so, you kind of, like I said before, you walk on eggshells, you try to be supportive, but that's one term too that I would get my ass kicked as eggshells. If you say that and learn that, you learn that after a while.
Yep.
Yeah, you don't say that at all because I'm just trying to be very cautious, and it's like I'm walking on eggshells, and I could say things. I'm just letting the people out in the podcast world there just listen and don't say things like, why can't you just be happy? Because I said that stuff in the beginning, and I understand now that is totally not cool or right.
0 out of 10.
You know,
Do not recommend.
are you taking your meds? Why are you not eating? Have you eaten today? How was did you sleep well every morning? And it was just really, everyone knows it's all done out of love. But when you look back and think now that what I know now, it's, you kind of have to, like, I went to a therapist too, and let me just tell everybody that in the very beginning, I was like, oh, I don't need therapy. I can handle this on my own.
I got this.
Yeah, I got this. But after a while, when you go to therapy, you'll be very surprised. I had to go through one. I don't even know. I just went to one session. I'm like, I'm out on that. So I checked another, and she was amazing. She's just so amazing. And she's like, the first when I walk up to ask her, or when I talk to her, she's like, well, what are you here for? And I told her, I go, how to cope loving someone with bipolar and living someone with bipolar, and how to help my kids. And she did an amazing job. And just what I just mentioned before, I said, well, I would say this and this. She goes, well, first of all, don't do that. She's an adult. She has to be in control of her own mental health, not you. And so I thought about that, and I'm like, yeah, I'm never going to ask that stuff again. And I didn't. I mean, it's too late.
love that you brought that up though, because I feel like loving someone with bipolar disorder is counterintuitive to how we love someone with every other single illness.
Yeah.
Because if someone does have, even Cody's diabetes, it is like, like, do we need your insulin, or like, are you running low on that? And I'm not going to get any kickback. There's not going to be like, why are you asking me that? Don't ask me if I took my med. Like, there's nothing like that with diabetes or, anything else. And that's what you would do when you're a partner. You want to help someone. Like, can I go pick, even something like, can I go pick up your meds from the pharmacy? If he's manic, will piss him off to all hell. Like, that's counterintuitive to loving someone. It really is. And so everything you just said are things that I had said myself too at one time. Exactly. Like, are you sleeping? Like, did you take your meds? Like, well, like, and it's all said out with love, absolutely pisses him off and triggers him. That's counterintuitive. I had to learn that too through therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you make a great point. Yeah, I mean, that is so true with the other illnesses, because every illness is like, oh, I have a loved one that's taking care of me, and they may not feel. They still feel, not shame, but they just feel guilty that you're taking care of them, but they allow you to do it. Where here, they have no guilt. They just want to choke you. They just let me be me and all that.
Yeah.
And also using the word you. I've learned that. Don't be like, well, you're the one who's struggling, not, don't always use you. Try to use it as a we and us. I've learned that, because then it kind of brings them in a little bit more, that we're in it together. One of the doctors told me that. He's like, this is one of the worst. And I'm like, okay. So, I mean, right there, you're not going to get your partner back, but you always want to be there to support them. And after, she left, you tried to, but then when you're going through legal stuff and everything, and I'm like, hey, we got to do this and this, and we just do it as we'll do it together as a team. And then you get thrown back, because imagine going a year and a half, or about a year and 3 months, with somebody going through divorces proceedings and stuff like that, when you're told, her therapist and lawyer, she's not allowed to have conversations with you. And teamwork is a lot different than it used to be. That's like, I hear that stuff, I'm like, I'm not trying to do nothing but be the best for us and our kids. But now after that 2-week stint and everything, I think the meds went doubled and much better, get along better. So that is great. And I just didn't have the benefit in our time together, unfortunately, to have someone help her change in a psychiatrist or a therapist, and someone really recommended the right psychiatrist to go, you need to be on this and change to this and double this, because it's just like, you just sit there and like, damn, this is how it should be. I just missed out on that opportunity of the correct medication, really.
I want to reframe that for you, because I don't think you missed out on that opportunity. It's that you and your ex did not have access to the right resources at that period of time. I don't think that what you experienced was missing out for you. I think you were doing everything you possibly could and everything you knew how to do. And you got a therapist. You know, you were checking all the boxes to help yourself, your family, your kids, all of the things, right? So
Yeah.
I feel
I
like
think that's why Brooke and I are doing this, and possibly why you agreed even to come on it, because if you can help someone else who is in that situation who doesn't have the tools, and a lot of times it is just a matter of not knowing the tools. You can't do what you don't know. You know, you're
yeah,
just doing the best that you can. And so if that's why we do, or at least me, why I want to
same.
do this podcast, yeah, and do my TikTok, and um also just there's like there's nothing. Like when Cody got diagnosed, yeah, I think some nurses talked to me. We maybe got some papers on what bipolar disorder was. No one recommended I go to therapy. No one recommended I learn about it. I actually just did that on my own, but it's not like people recommended it. It was like,
Mhm.
well, this is what he has. Good luck.
See you
And
later. Have a good
like,
day.
yeah, like
Hmm.
this is so egregious to me because family members need to know that this is a very, very, very serious mental illness.
Yeah.
Very.
And it doesn't
And
just
what can
affect the
happen.
person.
Yes, exactly. It affects the whole family, like
Yep.
at this point. So anyway.
No, that's a
But
great
we get
point.
a point where we actually sit there and look back and like kind of feel sorry for ourselves, even though you know, that's just how it is. Like, oh, why can so you bring yourself to that level of feeling down and like, why couldn't I have this? And you feel guilt and just sorry for yourself. But you gotta, rise up and be like, all right, well, this is how it ended. This is how it's gonna be. You gotta just still be the best support for your kids and their mom, basically.
Mhm.
Yeah, best you can. So, um,
But
yeah,
that,
and like all the
not
things like
everybody
Brooke.
would treat them that way. Not everybody is going to think that way, Matt. And I want to point out
Well,
to you that, like, kudos to you, hats off to you for being able to see what was happening for what it was, for being able to lovingly separate yourself from the marriage, separate yourself from the illness, and still want to be an active participatory part and role in your now, you're no longer legally married, but you still want to
right.
show up for her and show up for your kids because you know that that illness exists. Like, not everyone is going to take that role. So I just want to thank you for showing up for your kids and for her still, even though you have no obligation to.
Nope.
None.
Nope. I don't. But you also got to remember you don't want to. Yeah, I guess part of it is because you obviously still care. You spend so many years together, but also is you get the fear of seeing your kids now that they're older, even though the oldest two have seen it a little bit and in
Hmm.
a hospital, but the youngest hasn't. But to see it the way it can really be, and they really see it, what I saw in the hospital, they didn't see. I mean, I worry that sometimes, if she's around, they're there to help, that they're going to see that too, and that's going to stick with them forever. Let's be honest. It actually happened with my oldest one, saw it. And then the one that, like in 2016, she was 18. She saw it. And in 2022, in September, all the kids went to go see, but they only allowed one person in. But my oldest went to my little boy. And I go, "Did you guys get to go talk to mom?" She's like, "Nope. Only the middle." I would say my middle one did. And my oldest was like, there was no way I was going to have him go in there. And he was 14 at the time. There was no way I'm going to have him go in there. So she kept him because she
Uh,
remembers.
Mm. They won't even let my kids go in to
Yeah.
to visit here. Like that's not an option.
Yeah, that one, it was just one person and then you had to be an adult. And
Oh,
mine
gotcha.
the two oldest ones were in their 20s when that was
Mhm.
going on with
I
my
gotcha.
little one. So, but the oldest one saw it at 18, even still adult, but I was like, um, but the other thing I want to mention is just like with Brooke and you guys, we all notice a week ahead, like mine is sometimes the way the laugh comes, sometimes it's handwriting.
Uh-huh.
I know all these little things straightening up all the time, but I can tell by handwriting because she takes notes nonstop every day, not just work, but everything, just like a to-do list, because that's how they know what to do. They just write down, oh, I need to go pick up Tide at the grocery store today. I need laundry,
Sure.
sir. I need that, but the lettering gets so much bigger and
Uh,
wider And so I always know on the notes, because it was always sitting on the table, I can like look at it and go, okay, I know it's coming.
Sure.
So my point is, listen, my point is for the people out there, just be aware and kind of notice if things are repeating themselves and it turns out to be a manic state, and over time you'll be able to be well prepared for it instead of it just hitting you out of nowhere.
You do notice signs. I feel like that's one of the most difficult things for me to convey to people is what does mania look like? Because mania does have a lot of similarities, as we've talked about, but those signs leading up to it are just a difference in baseline to your individual person. And since we're all individuals, that looks different for every single individual person, you know?
Yep.
Out in the real world. Yep. If they did it out in the real world, out in the streets, people are going to be like, not even think twice about it.
Yeah, they're gonna be like,
every
"What are you
other day.
talking about?" So she's writing big? Like, bro,
Yeah.
like no one's
Yeah.
even gonna notice that.
Right.
You know,
And her, and her laugh, and the laugh change. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to ask you going back, and if this is, if you don't want to talk about this, please feel free to
Yeah.
just say no, not on this. But in terms of the kids, I think that since my kids were younger, I definitely shield them from like this most like severe tipping point of the manic episode. We are always removing ourselves from the home, or he's removed. But to some extent, I really took the route of just education, and like I bought children's books that I could read to them and explain to them what's going on with their dad. And then also, it's odd to set boundaries with your own parents, but they learned how to set boundaries when he's sick, and that it's okay. And that I'm going to support you in those boundary settings when he's sick, not when he's well, obviously, like because he's your parent when he's well. And so it has been tricky to navigate, but that's kind of the position I took. So at some point, it's likely, would you agree, that your children will see this side of her at some point in their life? And yeah, are you trying to shield them from that completely, or what have been your thoughts with your
No.
therapist and how you're navigating that?
Like you mean from today on?
Yeah.
Yeah. Today on, like I said, I have 2 adult daughters and they know all about this. So, I'm not shielding them. No.
Yeah.
But the
Okay.
little one, the youngest one, still, yes, because he hasn't seen the full blown, but I just pray, and we all pray that, things, and, you hear the success story. I mean, I know one, it's in her family that it's been like 30 years. And it
Wow.
was a nice thing, because she's like 80, but, but, and that's good. And that's when I speak with her family quite often, and that's the other thing, they still call and check on her with me. And that's some of the things too, that's really heartbreaking to me, is some of the family members like don't associate with, my ex anymore. And it's very heartbreaking. I want to see that get back and have that understanding, but it's a very stubborn thing. I believe on both ends, like, oh, I need an apology. Well, I need an apology. It's both need an apology. Reach out first. Who's going to reach out first? So yeah, in the meantime, but yes, but there is a success story that I'm very well aware of. So I look at that as like, I mean, she has been great for doing very well for almost a year and a half in my book. She'll say 2, I say a year and a half, because she did go to PHP on her own, which never would have happened until she got out of a hospital. She just decided, like, texted me one day, go, hey, I'm doing this for the next 2 weeks. We need to figure out a way, because my boy didn't have a car and he was using both of ours or hers more often. We need to do this when I get done with work. I'm going to go here, figure out rides. And I'm like, damn, hell yeah. That made me feel so good because it was done on her own.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that's a huge step, from what I dealt
Absolutely.
with the last 7 years. A lot of things that recently, and it's made me happy, even being open and talking about it with people, and even saying I worked at a company and this happened, and and now I'm at a smaller company that support people, I believe, that struggle, and that makes me feel, and she'll tell that openly, and that's huge from what I'm used to, and I just credit her, for doing that, and I hope it stays,
Yeah,
Wow,
that's
that is
awesome.
awesome.
It is really great. Everything changed for us too when Cody took ownership of it and then was just open about it. Um, it helped enormously.
Yeah, I mean, I will always and forever say that when you say things out loud, they have less power. Fully believe that. And if it's intrusive thoughts, if it's something you feel guilt about or shame about, the more you say it out loud, the less power it holds over you. The more people hear it just becomes not as this burden, this huge black cloud that follows you around. So I
hmm
love that. I love that for both of you. I have the opposite problem where I'm like, can you please not tell the guy in the grocery store your entire story?
Man,
Oh boy, we're gonna be here for an
yeah,
hour, you know. Um,
yeah,
and no, you can't tell everybody at work because oh geez, oh peas, okay. I mean, I have an HR accounting background, so I'm like, oh, there's a process to make this work. So yeah, I've had the opposite to happen here with Jeremy, but at the same time, like for him being able to open up to people about how he feels and situations that he's experienced, that's been a huge help for him for sure. So
mhm,
I just want to
yeah,
go back real quick to you saying that, sometimes you feel guilty that it didn't work. And what I want you to know and the audience to know is that I've been like hop, skip, and a jump away from my story being your story as well. Because
mhm,
as part of setting boundaries, um, I mean, if he's not respecting the boundaries that I put in place, which a manic person typically will not,
right,
sometimes the consequence has had to be so severe. I had to threaten that, and even this last time, start the process because of different things with custody of my children, things like that I was concerned about, and so even early on in that first episode, my therapist way back, 9 months being married, madly in love with him, totally heartbroken. I moved out, moved back in with my parents, and I was like, I will not come back and live with you until you've satisfied and met these specific conditions for me coming back. And I think the scariest part about that was I had to accept he might not do it. I mean, he might not have accepted the boundaries or,
mhm,
like, and
yeah,
if he didn't, the result was divorce. Like that was devastating to me to even set the boundary in place knowing that that could be a potential option. But
uh-huh.
he came through fortunately, and that's why I'm here is because he has met my conditions with reason every time. So, yeah.
So yeah, that's a big difference. There was not a lot of talk about it though, because of the circumstance of why. What I learned, you just don't want to bring that up because you saw how much trauma it brings. That you don't want to bring up anything, you know, mental illness wise. That you kind of
Mhm.
don't. You're not able to set the boundaries. That I'm like the punching bag or whatever, and I'm cool with that. And at the time, it was just more about my children and her getting better. But yeah, it's just like I said, when you go to I've seen a few things in the hospital, and one of the things, and it's the same thing. It was just weird. I don't know about you guys. Every time the hospital uh, happens, there's like a couple things that are exactly the same that happen in how like mine is. A nurse will come and give medicine and take it and stare at the person, then spit it right out. And I knew that was going to be so not getting medicine, so it's going to take a lot longer
mm,
to this process for the calm to come and the trying to get her by it. So I had to sit there through that, and it was the same thing, and it took forever for that. And it's just you know I just wanted to bring that up because some people are
yeah,
like, you see the handwriting, everything, and when you're actually inside, there's more things. But I'll just say that is one thing. She reads a lot, and she read about medicines and probably got a bad thought in her head about some of the
hmm
side effects or this and that. And,
hmm
I could see the books on my table and it's about that. And I'm like, well, she's reading that. That's in her head that maybe a side effect's going to come and worried about it. So didn't
yeah,
trust in a manic state. You don't trust anything that's going in your
mm-mm.
mouth. So,
Especially if it doesn't fit with the narrative that they are trying
yeah,
to pursue. So
yeah,
yeah, yeah. And I think too, another side of that would be that the person has to come to terms with or feels like they're forced to come to terms with the fact that they require medicine to exist, what I'm going to put in air
yeah,
quotes here, normally for the remainder of their life. That is a
yeah,
hard concept for the person, especially when they're sick, to accept, for sure.
yeah,
So,
Uh,
yeah.
I wonder with, just having like, because Brooke and I obviously are the wives in this situation, but I think men, I don't know, and I might be overgeneralizing this, but I think men are more willing to be that figurative punching bag, like you just mentioned. Like you're willing to, honestly, that is verbal abuse though.
Hmm.
So even though it's coming from the woman and she poses very little risk at hurting you, you're willing to take that verbal abuse. And as a woman, we just can't go there. Like the minute verbal abuse starts as a wife, you're done because we don't know how far it could escalate, how quickly it could escalate, and we're more vulnerable. So I mean, even for men, I don't encourage you to be a punching bag,
Yeah,
even though,
absolutely.
yeah,
Right. But I'm not saying like it wasn't like I meant like just being there and taking the heat off the kids and everything, which was fun. It's not like it was I would get called anything. She wouldn't call me name. I mean, we've had spats during them times, and but it's not like it was wake up in the morning, bam. That happened a
Hmm.
few times, but it's over time. Just being the go. I'm out of this, and you're like, oh, I'll go get it, or not that they're doing it on purpose, but it's like you make sure you go in the car and you're like, oh, you're low on gas. I'll go get it for you. So it's just things you don't have
oh, I
to,
see. You were just like feeling like you're taking more
and
responsibility.
don't feel like, and it's not like, and I know she wasn't taking advantage of me. I know that. I could
Yeah.
tell when she's down and she's like, I'm sorry, I don't really feel like making dinner. I go, and I'm at work. I'm like, I'll come home. Don't worry. I'll get it. I'll pick some up or do it. It's fine. So I did that over time, and maybe over time it became, like, I could do this and he'll take care of it. You know what I mean? But and then that's why I mean that was fine with me.
I
Yes,
see.
I see
Yeah.
what you're saying. Yeah, I feel like every spouse of someone who has a severe mental illness has to be an extremely strong person that takes over sometimes and just has to get it done because there
Yeah.
is no other option.
And
And
that
I'd be
sometimes
yelling at my
looks
kid.
different for
Yeah.
everybody
Yeah.
because it could be a week,
And
2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a month, 6 months, whatever it might be.
and when you have bedrooms by each other and she's like, I'm going to sleep. And then your kids playing video games next door and being loud you got to go in and be the authoritative figure and you got to be the bad guy. Like, what are you doing? You got to keep it down. Your
Right.
mom's trying to sleep. But you don't want to
Hmm.
wake her up in the middle and then she will not go to bed. So I was that ass to my
I
kids,
gotcha.
probably in their eyes. And they're not knowing why I'm doing it. I'm just like, keep it down. Just keep it down. Oh, dad's being a jerk today. No, but they don't understand like the trauma that you see, what's going to happen when the sleep doesn't come.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, my kids know. I honestly like I've had to be that person too, but everyone knows like if he's sleeping, dad needs sleep. Everybody knows that. If dad's like it's just known because like do you want dad? Like dad might get sick again if he doesn't get sleep. So
Mhm. We have to protect the sleep
yeah. Yes, the
at all
sleep.
costs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Matt, thank you so much for being here, for answering all of our questions, for jumping on and being willing to talk about lovingly leaving the person with bipolar disorder that you were together with for a long, long, long time. We truly appreciate everything that you brought to the table and wish you nothing but the best.
Yes, thank you so much, Matt. Really appreciate you being on.
Yes. And as always, episodes are going to be dropping every other week across pretty much all podcast platforms on Wednesdays. Didn't say that. You can find us on YouTube at BipolarLines Pod. If you'd rather watch podcasts than listen, find us there. And Laura could talk about the Facebook group.
Yes, but check us out, our Facebook group, Bipolar Lines. That's just Bipolar Lines, right?
Pod.
Or is it Bipolar Lines Pod too? Okay, Bipolar Lines Pod on our Facebook.
Yes. And then you can find me on TikTok at break_stigma.
And you can find me at the BP Spouse on TikTok as well.
Yeah. Awesome. It's been a great episode. And as always, thank you so much for being here, for showing up for your person. And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.